Deputy Mayors, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second session of this part two of this agenda item. We are going to give the floor again to Boston Mayor because we had a problem before, and I hope that now the technicality is okay and we can have the connection.
The main corridor for the 28 bus and a roadway where more than 50% of peak period users are on buses. Our marketing efforts included advertisements on buses and bus shelters, articles in local neighborhood newspapers, including multilingual press, flyers handed out at businesses, social media, and email campaigns to try to reach every single person where they are. We matched the diversity of languages used for marketing to the diversity of languages spoken by our communities. And since riders didn't need to pay at the front of the bus, they could get on the bus using any door, expediting boarding times and facilitating more space between riders. Very helpful during a pandemic in which social distancing was a key mitigation for viral spread. The city also surveyed bus riders about their experience before and during the pilot to capture data on the impact of the free fares program. In addition to operational data collected before and during the pilot, we held one-on-one interviews with Route 28 riders to dive deeper into the survey responses and better understand the pilot's effectiveness and externalities. So, what did we learn? First, free fares successfully encouraged increases in ridership, some of which came from trips that would have been car trips or wouldn't have happened at all as people were rationing their trips to undertake basic life necessities. Each person getting on the bus was able to board about 20% faster than before. We know that the Route 28 bus at Nubian Station had a large group of riders boarding through every door, and the 28 absorbed a significant ridership increase with minimal negative impact on travel times or reliability. About 20% of our riders saved more than $20 a month, and the Route 28 riders enjoyed the easier boarding process, telling us that their overall satisfaction with the bus and our public transit system had improved. So, while free lunch is still a little ways away in Boston, free rides are here to stay, at least for the foreseeable future. We've expanded this free bus program to include 2 more bus routes for 2 full years. And while it is an upfront cost that the city is funding, we're doing so in a way that invests into our residents, that will pay dividends for the overall financial, physical, and communal health of our city and our residents in the long term. No less important, we are excited to see the impact of free fares and more efficient boarding processes on our environment and air quality by reducing carbon emissions generated by idling and by the ways in which it will encourage a broader shift to more sustainable transportation. Of course, the impact of free bus fares goes beyond what we can easily quantify. In making public transit more accessible, we communicate to our residents that they are seen and valued, that their needs matter, that they deserve to be able to access schools, parks, arts and medical services, jobs and homes, the spaces and places where we live our lives. We send the message that our people and our communities are worth investing in, that we're willing to think creatively about transit as a tool for not only tearing down barriers to mobility, but all barriers that stand in the way of our communities. I welcome your feedback, your partnership, and look forward to learning so much from this incredible group. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor of Boston. On behalf of the previous moderators, I thank you very much for sharing this information on public transport and an important message that everything that we do has to keep people in center. Now I have the honor to open the second session, the vibrant public spaces, green cities, and nature-based solutions. The session will be co-moderated by Ms. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I missed. Where is it? Sorry. Yeah, the session will be co-moderated by Mr. Erion Vellier, Mayor of Tirana, which is also the mayor of my city, and Miss Marie-Pierre Megang, which is also a bureau member, and she's from France. So please, now it's upon you. Before that, I would like to invite Ms. Paula Deda to introduce the topic and to set the scene.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Indeed, before we pass it on to the moderators, just some information about the linkages of this session, as we mentioned this morning, to the SDGs, the Geneva Declaration of Mayors, and to COVID recovery. Links to SDGs for vibrant public spaces, green cities, and nature-based solutions are, I think, quite evident, but let's not forget we are also talking about SDG 2 on urban agriculture, SDG 3 on health, SDG 11 on accessible green public spaces, air quality and waste management, SDG 13 on climate, and SDG 15 on urban forests. Links to the Geneva Declaration of Mayors is ambitious climate action, making our cities greener, and of course, resilient cities by creating environments which improve the physical, mental, and environmental health of communities. What are the essential elements also of this session? We will going to hear about vibrant public spaces, including management public space and grandes as essential tools for addressing climate, contributing the mental health of citizens and fostering social interaction, but also nature-based solutions. And in cities, we are talking about urban forests that are critical elements in addressing climate change. We are also talking about biodiversity in city, both managed and unmanaged green spaces that offer important habitats for conserving biodiversity in urban areas. And once again, of course, also energy efficiencies. What are the links with city planning? Urban green spaces are means for conserving biodiversity at the local level, as well as across multiple landscapes. Urban forests are an integral part of city planning, and that's very important. They will be very clear from the case studies you will hear about. Nature-based construction materials are also essential for a green city, as well as, of course, more bicycle and pedestrian lanes, as we heard this morning. As far as the COVID recovery is concerned and related specific measures, let's not forget the reorganization of public spaces and related access that has been one of the main elements of rebuilding and building back better, as well as community services and more managed green spaces. I'll stop it here and leave it to the moderators. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Paula. And now I give the floor to the moderators. And please keep in mind that each mayor has 8 minutes to speak. Okay, thank you.
Merci, Doris.
Thank you, Doris, and good afternoon, everyone. So some French for us. I would propose to give the floor to my co-moderator, the mayor of Tirana, Mr. Erion Vellier.
For the friends, is it working okay? It is with a great delight that I see a lot of friends, old and new, as cities come together for a third session of the Cities Forum organized by the UNECE. It's been a challenging time for cities, and I think the elephant in the room, of course, that cannot be avoided, I think, from any of our reflections, is what's going on in the Ukraine. So I'm also excited here to see cities that have spoken up, have taken a stand, and I believe in city diplomacy, and cities probably can't provide resolutions to the UN Security Council or weaponry, but they definitely can provide solidarity. They definitely can provide messages. They definitely can stand up for our fellow mayors in the Ukraine. And I'm also happy to see many of these very brave mayors who've either given civic assistance or made very bold political statements as it pertains to the very difficult and challenging situation that we're seeing from the Ukraine. For me as an Albanian coming from a region that has seen plenty of pain caused by not this time the environment or climate change, but human behavior, such as the case in Bosnia and Kosovo. It's a pain to see that the only thing we learn from history is that we don't learn anything from history. But apparently being a mayor in this time of age comes with this job description. I remember in my first year in office, it did not rain for 182 days. And all the experts were saying, don't worry, Mr. Mayor, this is part of the job. Once in 100 years, you have a crisis like this, you're going to be fine. In my second year, it rained so much, it wouldn't stop raining. Downtown was completely flooded, and my friends from Italy would probably understand when I say it looked like San Marco in Venice every time the sea comes out and overflows. And again, the expert said, don't worry, Mr. Mayor, once in 100 years, you have a crisis like this, and you're going to be completely fine when this is over. The third year, there were fires everywhere. It felt like we were living in a microwave. In the hills and in the mountains around, we didn't have enough fire engines or helicopters. And again, the expert said, well, look, California, Australia, Albania, once in 100 years, you have massive fires like this. Once this is done, you're going to be completely fine. In the fourth year, as you know, my friends from Bari are sitting across from me. It snowed, in Tirana, in the Mediterranean, by the coast. And everybody said, it's going to melt. You're going to be fine. Once in 100 years, it also snows in the Mediterranean. So you're going to be completely fine. In the fifth year, we had a major earthquake in 2019, September, November. Huge parts of the city, and some of the mayors, my fellow mayors from Albania are here. It devastated huge chunks of the city. That had not happened since 1905 with an earthquake. So literally people said, well, Mr. Mayor, once in 100 years, you're going to have a major earthquake. You're going to be fine. Everything will be rebuilt. After that, on my sixth year, we had the pandemic, which literally happens once in 100 years. Since 1918, the Spanish flu. And again, the expert said, you're going to be fine. It's going to pass as well. Let's move on. And we're going to brave this other challenge. And of course, now in the seventh year, we see a war in Europe, which again, almost in 100 years since the Second World War, that we saw something of a kind. So apparently, a lot of the stuff that our grandparents were seeing once in a century, it's being packed within our generation. As a matter of fact, for mayors, it's being packed within our mandate. Apparently, every crisis that otherwise happened once in a century is now being packed within our mandate. So the question is, what do we do? Do we resign? Do we give up? Do we escape the challenge? Or do we adapt? Do we become resilient? So there's a few things I wanted to mention about our resiliency plan in Tirana. The first one was, and hopefully our technical people will help out with the slides. But one was, how do we prepare young people for the jobs of the future? So we took the example of the pyramid of Tirana. It should be displayed in your screens. And how do we get young people to do jobs that otherwise we were not doing before? And I think many of us did not know what Zoom was until 2 years ago. But apparently the jobs of the future are including more remote working, more applications, more distance learning and distance work in all of our cities. We are now going on a massive spree. I was born in a generation and raised by a mother who used to knit shoes and work on textile factories. And the question is, what will our kids do in 2050? Well, if they will do the new digital jobs and the technologies that we found out during the COVID period that we're paying more to our younger generations, might as well start training them now so we prepare an answer for 2050. The Pyramid of Tirana was a great landmark in the city. It started as a mausoleum for the former dictator, and then became a museum. It became a disco. It became a NATO headquarters. It became a big slide from the marble edges. Now it's being retrofitted to become the largest IT center, alternative academia, to train our young generations how to do the jobs of the future. And this was one of the big decisions that we took during the COVID crisis. The other one is to answer our questions about how do we use public space. And to answer the ultimate question that I think Norman Foster posed this morning, do we build cities for cars or for people? And the next slide should show how a lot of our downtown and iconic parts of the city were freed from cars. Now, in the hearts of our cities, those of us who came from Eastern Europe, we dedicated the center squares for the monuments of dictators. For the last 30 years, since the fall of the Berlin Wall, we dedicated our center squares to another dictator called the Automobile. Because, if you lived in Eastern Europe, as an Albanian, you'd go to Italy or come to Germany or Switzerland, and you'd bring a trophy to tell your families and your neighbors that you're not a poor communist anymore, you made it in capitalism. And the trophy was the automobile. We went from a city of 17 cars to a city of 170,000 cars, because in communism, you couldn't own a car, but now everybody owns one, mostly to go to the coffee house and to the pharmacy and to the bakery. Menial jobs that otherwise in the past, we'd walk or we'd take a bike or take the bus. So reclaiming public space and embracing the giving of the city back to its citizen, and answering to the question that cities belong to people. They're not big parking lots. And I think using the time of COVID to incentivize electric taxis, to do pop-up lanes for the bikes. Now, in the current circumstance of the war in Ukraine, oil prices have skyrocketed. For anyone who thinks that we are completely genetically different from the Dutch and the Danish, you're completely mistaken, because they didn't change because they are genetically different, or they are poor, so they lost their cars. They changed because in 1975, we had a major OPEC crisis with the oil price. So they decided to outsmart OPEC, went into their bikes, not because they're poor and lost their cars, but because they understood that a sustainable answer to the fluctuating war prices, whether it's a cartel or whether it's a war on a country in Europe, would be a response that is environmentally friendly, keeps people fit, and returns cities with an epicenter of people. In the city of Tirana, like in every city, we have a certain number of taxis, which per 10,000 people, you issue a taxi license. Just by tweaking this regulation and telling electric taxi providers that they get a license in 24 hours, we've now moved half of our fleet to electric, which means that sometimes you don't have to pay subsidies. I love what the mayor of Boston said about providing subsidies, but some of our cities don't have the budget of Boston. So sometimes by tweaking the rules to favor new and green technologies, absolutely makes a difference, and it has made a difference for taxi and bus service in Tirana. And when I came here last time, we were talking about something called, we'll go to the next slide, something called the Orbital Forest. We also invited the top architect, and I'm hoping that in the efforts to rebuild Ukraine with a new Marshall Plan, it'd be great to get some of these fantastic experiences from world-renowned architects to build better, stronger, but also keep in mind the tragedy that went on, but also plan for the cities of the future in Ukraine and elsewhere. So we were working with Stefano Boeri, as chief architect of the city of Tirana in my first mandate, and we wanted to build 2 million trees that we could not afford. We're not a rich city. So we said, but what if every child in the city plants a tree for their birthday? And what if we crowdsource the tree planting, where everybody has a GPS location, they can put a tag, they can not metaphorically have roots in the city, but physically have roots in the city. And the answer is, every child that plants a tree will never cut a tree, will never spit on the ground, will never yell and scream at people. So basically you have recruited a city militant for life, the city revolutionary for life, which has been very helpful in other initiatives that adults find very cynical. So if you are an adult, or if you're a grown-up in a lot of our cities, you can always be suspicious of the mayor or the member of parliament or an ambassador. But you cannot be suspicious of your own child, who loves the car-free days, who's planted the tree, and who will be there for life with roots in the city out of this initiative. Again, cost-free. You just build an app where people find a GPS, and then on your child's birthday, you show up, we will dig the hole for you, you bring the tree from a list of trees, and then all of a sudden the whole city is a participant in this wave of change and transformation. And then I'll move to the next slide. We had a huge tragedy from the earthquake that I mentioned, one of the 7 tragedies, looks like from the Bible, the 10 crises that the Old Testament describes. But again, how do you use a tragedy and a crisis and turn it into an opportunity? Jean Nouvel used to say every crisis requires a new architecture. So we said, why not use this opportunity where a lot of these Soviet-style blocks were completely demolished from the earthquake and build the 15-minute city that many rich cities can afford to do because they have the money, but we didn't afford before. But now that we have these lands that were free from buildings that collapsed, why not build them in a way where public services, where the pharmacy, the bank, the utilities, the school, the kindergarten, the nursery, the playground, the sports fields are also next to a neighborhood, so you don't have to shuttle from across town, but you can literally walk and bike within a very short distance. So now we're very busy building state-of-the-art neighborhoods and public facilities, and using the crisis of an earthquake as an opportunity. It's a terrible thing what's going on in the Ukraine, but when it's over, and it will be over, and life resumes again, it will also be an opportunity to rebuild the cities even better, and with the green agenda and the sustainability components in mind. The next and final slide, or the one before last, was how to use a lot of the customs and what we cherish in our societies to design better urban settlements. So for example, we come from the Mediterranean. Food is very important, and sharing of food, in Albania, no one says, let's have a meeting. People say, let's go and grab a coffee, as a way to illustrate that we love the Dolce Vita. We cherish our way of life, breaking bread, sharing a coffee. So beautifying some of these places where people cross meet, like the markets, like the castles, like the historic parts of the city. Now, I know the list of priorities is probably 100 things for every mayor, but you always start by places and acupuncture that people use the most. Now, I know everybody loves a full body massage, but if you cannot afford it, and if you're a poor city, start with needles in the body, acupuncture, which basically means change some iconic places where people eat and share time and go to play, because that will have an impact. So you will not probably touch every pore of the city, but you will touch, that needle will touch a nerve that will make your whole city feel and act different. And to conclude with the last slide, and I will conclude where again, I'm happy I see my very good friend, the mayor of Vilnius is here. We both started this trend of renaming our streets in front of the Russian-Ukrainian embassies in Tirana, the Free Ukraine Street, because I think cities can make a statement with their urban surroundings. Cities can maybe don't sit here and vote all the time. We only come here once a year, but in our daily work, we can make a statement. And one of the amazing graffiti that I found was that in a world of Putin's, Via Zelensky, in a world of jerks and people who are always trying to bring us back to the Middle Ages, be a brave person. And mayors, I think, have a fantastic opportunity to not only do city diplomacy, but use the urban settlement to make a statement for what we stand for now in 2022 as human beings, and also as aspirants of modern, progressive, and open cities. So I'm delighted to be here. Thanks so much for providing the opportunity. I know we had a lot of hiccups from 3 years ago when we planned the Mayor's Forum, but the fact that it's still standing goes to show that progressive ideas are here to stay, and we will always stand in solidarity with those who fight for those ideas, like our friends in Ukraine. Thank you very much, and I will join my seat to co-moderate with my wonderful friend from France. Merci, thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think we can also say that we're very happy that you're here with us and that you have opened this session, which is entitled Vibrant Public Spaces, Green Cities and Nature-Based Solutions. You've opened this with a vibrant and open speech. Yes, you've reminded us that our cities are full of dynamics. They are crossroads of events and histories, catastrophes, man-made or natural or both. And every time we try to build better. And then now I'd like to give the floor to the Mayor of Ghent, Belgium, Mr. Matthias de Klerk. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, dear excellencies, ambassadors, dear colleagues, mayors. All over the world, we are fighting climate change and making our cities more sustainable. And today I would like to tell you how we tackle the issue in Ghent, in Belgium, by intervening in public space. The third largest city of Belgium, my city, Ghent, is a beautiful city with medieval towers, historical buildings, and a history spanning thousands of years. But we are also experiencing the effects of global warming. Heat waves, long periods of rain in winter, extreme summer storms, or long periods of droughts. Fortunately, in Ghent, we are well equipped to deal with crises like this. Our story revolves around collaboration, and I would like to share it with you today. And I hope that we can inspire you a bit. Next slide, please. I will explain our approach looking at the example of these student circles. When the world and our city as well was locked down because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are forced to rethink how we use and experience our urban public space. The lockdown and restrictions on public life particularly affected vulnerable groups, disadvantaged families, the elderly, but also children and young people struggled. Children could no longer go to their sport clubs or youth associations and were even more dependent on public space for playing. Our students were also affected by social distancing, and the difference was huge because you should know in normal times, Ghent is a bustling student city with 80,000 students. This image dates from exactly 1 year ago, dear colleagues, and illustrates an original idea of our students to deal with the COVID measures. On one of our central squares, a beautiful square, as you see, there came an idea of the students, and 100 chalk circles were drawn. They allowed students to enjoy the spring sun and still safely observe the COVID measures. The idea was proposed by the Student Association and the city implemented it. And that is a typical Ghent approach. Participation and co-creation are central to everything we do. And thanks to that approach, Ghent was elected to be European Youth Capital 2024. We are very proud of it, Mr. Mayor of Tirana and other colleagues. This will allow us to give our young people even more space to experiment, to co-create and to become even more involved in the city. In Ghent, we are all looking for sustainable and creative solutions to achieve the SDGs and to make our city livable and climate-proof. And I'd like to share with you 2 more stories that I hope will inspire you to face these challenges together. One is about how we as a city are creating more green spaces in cooperation with our citizens. The other story is about how we use our municipal land, sustainable local food production. Both stories show how we pursue an approach in which everyone can cooperate across various policy domains, from large-scale projects to small citizens' initiatives. Other slide, please. Let me first explain how we make our city greener. Our city has an ambitious project to bring greenery and water into the city center via green climate access and green poles. They cool down the city and make it an enjoyable place to live, to relax, to work. We are working on a large-scale network of green, low-traffic connections along which people can traverse Ghent on foot, by bike, or even by boat. They also connect the center of Ghent to the surrounding countrysides. Another slide will show you that in Ghent, we transform our city together with our citizens. We are encouraging, empowering, and enabling them to help greening and cooling the urban environment on their own doorstep and in their own streets. Neighbors work together to create green facades, street gardens, and garlands of climbing plants that span the streets, thus giving it a complete makeover. A great side effect is that it makes neighbors connect and more together. And a last slide, you will see the second story is in fact a continuation on the first, who demonstrates how we as a city experiment with waterborne transport and using our own property for city-oriented agriculture to make our local food production more sustainable. In this image, you can see the bio boat, which is used by organic farmers to bring freshly vegetables to the city center every Tuesday afternoon. And a lot of people are waiting for the vegetables who are made fresh in the countryside. At the farm De Hoedinge at Afsnee, where the vegetables are ground, is located 6 kilometers outside the city. And it's very interesting to have that. They are working on it, and it's good for local consumption. And it was brought to the city center by electric bio boats. And this project fits in with our broader local food strategy, Ghent en Garde. And we won the European Citizens Award in 2021 and the UN Global Climate Action Awards in 2019. So the need for high quality public space will remain a challenge. And COVID has made it more clear, the interesting of goods, public space and the quality of life. Finally, Mr. Mayor, I want to stress that global peace, democracy, respect for human rights and territorial integrity are essential conditions for sustainable development. How can you achieve SDGs when your city becomes a battleground? When your schools, homes and hospitals are bombed and your citizens have to flee their homes? The city of Ghent strongly condemns Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine and expresses its support to Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Only in a rule-based international order we will realize the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Always welcome in our magnificent city of Ghent in Belgium. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Dank je wel, merci. We have as you know, you realize we have a bit of a competition with Ghent because we are this year's European Youth Capital. So if you want to visit two wonderful youth capitals, you can do this package. You get one, you pay for one and you get two, Tirana and Ghent 2022 and 2024. Some great takes from the mayor, the student circles, and the fact that more and more mayors, especially out of all politicians, are thinking more of the next generation than the next election. And I know many say, well, students come and go, they don't vote for me. Kids definitely don't vote and pay taxes. But the ultimate question is, what is this job for? Is it just for the next polling or the focus groups or the elections? Or is it also for the next generation? So this investment on student was phenomenal. And the issue of food production, you know, when the mayor started talking about urban farming, many people thought that this was a sexy urban thing to do in Europe that looks pretty and produces some salad. But now this has become serious business. A war like the war in Ukraine definitely impacts food supplies and the grain and the wheat. And I think now it doesn't look like a token project anymore, but a serious project that within our lifetime may impact our food supplies. And urban farming all of a sudden has become a mainstay rather than a side project for the cities. And I think my last take as I introduce the next mayor, and I think Matthias made a very good point, was that it really matters who your neighbors are. So, for example, I'm blessed. I live in a country that neighbors Italy and Greece and Northern Macedonia. No one is looking to invade us anytime soon. It's probably different to be a mayor in the Baltics, and that's why I will transition from Matthias to Mayor Mihail Kolvart, the mayor of Tallinn, Estonia, who I think will address us digitally.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, one of the targets of the 11th Sustainable Development Goal is to provide universal access to safe, inclusive, and accessible green and public spaces by 2030. Today, the average area of streets and open public spaces in cities is only 16%. Not much, to be honest. In Tallinn, the area of green spaces is 30%, but it should be more. Because access to a healthy environment was declared a human right by United Nations in 2021. Or, as a well-known American writer, Laura Ingalls Wilder said, some old-fashioned things like fresh air and sunshine are hard to beat. To increase public space is not easy, especially in all cities like Tallinn, where vacant territory is limited. So, like in a fairy tale, we have three options. Regenerating formerly neglected, closed or otherwise not accessible areas, raising the quality of existing public spaces and connecting green and blue spaces into attractive and accessible networks. Here are the two positive examples from Tallinn I want to share. First, Radio Road, and the first slide, please. Tallinn's 46-kilometer long coastline is unique in whole Europe. Having access to the sea is not a privilege, but a basic right for us. So we have been gradually opening the former closed Soviet Union border zone to the public. The old harbor is in the very center of Tallinn. With increasing number of trucks coming from the ferries, the port of Tallinn needed to reopen the historical 17th century road leading away from the harbor. Building a new road, especially for trucks, in the middle of the dense urban area seems not very sustainable. So we designed a high-quality public space next to it. Next slide, please. 2 years ago, Radio Road Promenade was opened with more than 10 kilometers of bike and pedestrian roads and close to 150,000 new trees, bushes, and perennials. We created a completely new city space by the sea on the side of former closed parking areas. Today, it is one of the most popular waterfront public places in Tallinn. Tonderaba Park. A huge, neglected, and inaccessible book in the center of the largest residential area was opened to the public only last year, including the biggest recreation area not only in Tallinn, but all Baltic countries. 85% of the 29 hectares of the park is still preserved as natural areas. The park biodiversity remained untouched, and the permanent inhabitants of the park, animals, birds, and plants, did not lose their homes. We even kept an old construction west side in the park, because over time it has become a living place for lizards. There are also almost 6 hectares for active recreation, tracks for walking and biking, playgrounds, skate parks, dog parks, and so on. The park will be connected with overall green corridor network of the city. Next slide, please. And next. These examples seem different, but they represent the two big goals Tallinn has: to open the city to the sea and to increase the number of green areas. These two goals are combined in the linear park conception, joining the green and blue areas into one connected network and allowing not only people, but also insects, birds, and animals to move between them. So the examples are not so different at all. Mentally, they are connected by the common concept, and physically, they'll be connected as parts of the linear park. As you can see, Tallinn is working hard to make our city greener and a better living environment. Our development strategy, Tallinn 2035, and climate action plan, Climate Neutral Tallinn, aim towards carbon neutrality. For our efforts, we have been awarded the European Green Capital title for 2023. Tallinn leads the European pilot network of 19 sustainable cities, which supports the implementation of sustainable development goals at the local level. To fulfill the goals we have set for the future, we need to change the way how the cities are run today. Developing sustainable and green governments is essential for achieving the ambitious goals of the cities globally. Tallinn is interested in creating an international platform that will focus on sustainable and green urban development issues and will provide support and governance models for the city in Europe and beyond. The proposed Forum of Mayor initiative supports the concept of sustainable governance as any international cooperation of mayors on any platform is horizontal cooperation, and cities need a well-coordinated partnership also on the United Nations level. And before I finish, I want to turn to my friends in Ukraine, Kyiv and Odessa, our twin cities, and our partners in all the other Ukrainian cities. Today, we support you with humanitarian aid and take care of your people who have fled from the horrors of the war. But when this war is over, Tallinn will help you in any way possible to rebuild your cities and recreate the green and vibrant public space for your people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for drawing our attention to the creativity of our cities in older Europe to use as much as we can all of the ways that we can reconnect with nature. Of course, we might have forgotten about these connections, but with some imagination and some creativity, our modern cities can benefit from nature and reconnect with it. So thank you for reminding us of that. And thank you for reminding us that even though we might be surrounded by concrete, we can still connect with nature, share it with others, and look at the prospects for the future and reconstruction, which present so many opportunities. I now pass the floor to the Mayor of Bari, Mr. Eugenio Di Sciaccio. So we're staying a little bit in the south. Thank you very much. I give you the floor.
Merci. Your Excellencies, mayors, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Eugenio Di Sciaccio, and I'm the Vice Mayor of the city of Bari. I would like, first of all, to present the greetings of our Mayor, Antonio De Caro, who was unable to participate to this relevant and timely event for institutional reasons. Bari is a vibrant Italian port city on the Adriatic coast of over 320,000 inhabitants, the capital of the Puglia region. It is the ninth Italian municipality by population, the third of the south, and its metropolitan area is the sixth in Italy with almost 1,300,000 inhabitants. But Bari is also known throughout the world for being the city that hosts the relics of St. Nicholas, the most revered saint in the world, we might say, recognized in the Mediterranean countries and in the Western Eastern Europe, both from Catholic and Dutch faiths, including Ukraine and Russian Federation. St. Nicholas is also revered from Northern Europe to America to all over the world through the myth of Santa Claus. Because of its strong symbolic and ecumenical value that unites the cultures of the West and East, Pope Francis recently defined Bari as the capital of dialogue and unity of faith. In this first photo, you can see Mayor De Caro as president of the Italian mayors, laying a bundle of flowers with the colors of the Ukrainian flag last March 30, praying for the end of this senseless world and expressing our full solidarity with the government, the mayors, the citizens, and all of the Ukrainian people, and stressing that conflicts can be resolved only through dialogue, and war must cease immediately. Next slide, please. In the last recent years, since the first mandate of our mayor, the city of Bari has experienced an intense season of social and urban transformation, fully focused on the themes of public space and community building, experiencing a participatory tension based on policy interest and citizen engagement. In particular, the urban development strategy has been focused on 3 pillars: providing a strong urban quality to all of the 12 neighborhoods of the city, creating new open public spaces such as squares, gardens, parks, cycle paths, and pedestrian streets, strengthening educational, social, cultural, and commercial proximity services in all the neighborhoods, such as kindergartens, new schools, new libraries, new markets, new welfare services, and social innovation centers for the youngest people. And furthermore, encouraging the development of the communities around these changes, giving local social networks a new centrality in the care, animation, and dialogue with the administration, also through e-democracy and e-participation platforms. Next slide, please. The outcome of this process, we can say, has been extraordinary. In just a few years, Bari has been able to experience a season of great growing civic trust, to increase its social capital and urban democracy, finding a strong community adhesion to values such as active participation, sociability, and proximity. A hard work that has been only made possible to transform the open public space into great stages of events for families, associations, and students, but which also developed a strong local identity and a deep sense of cohesion, which during the pandemic emergency from COVID-19 represented a strength for Bari. During the first lockdown, for example, we had a tremendous response from volunteer citizens committed to supporting the weakest and elderly in their neighborhoods. Next slide, please. Furthermore, due to the pandemic, the city of Bari, to face several challenges, we had approved an emergency plan of the public space entitled Open Spaces, in which we redesigned from scratch the urban geography through tactical urban planning and temporary free use of public spaces to favor sociality, because we are social animals in security. The main strategic lines were two: to move, which was encouraged with micromobility electrical vehicles, extending the traffic calming policies, creating a network of pedestrian and light cycle paths, and to stay, which has provided a tactical planning of the public space near the sea, schools, parishes, and theaters to encourage open-air education, open-air trade, and safe cultural enjoyment. We have to say that some of these initiatives will now become ordinary and will stay with us also after the pandemic is gone. Next slide. As foreseen by the Next Generation EU plan and this financial instrument that in Italy is called the Recovery and Resilience Facility, our development program is now aimed at qualifying and further expanding its orientation on public spaces, with a strong emphasis on the issues of climate change, environmental resilience that characterize the European and international urban agenda. For this reason, Bari is now engaged in important greening and urban forestation operations, green infrastructure, environmental qualification of neighborhoods and industrial areas, construction of urban parks, the naturalistic redesign of over 45 kilometers of our city's coastline based on ecological principles and sustainability and innovation standards. The coronavirus pandemic has taught us that we cannot delay facing global challenges. We all must work together to address, among other things, climate change and the sustainability of our growth model. And with the European Green Deal, we are ready to contribute to a sustainable and most of all, to a peaceful Europe and world. It's not a small challenge, but I think that all united, we can win this challenge as we need it. Thanks.
Fantastic to hear from the Vice Mayor of Bari. Having grown just across from the pond, I've seen the transformation, incredible transformation of Bari. And it is for no reason that Mayor De Caro is considered the Italy's più amato sindaco, the Italy's most loved mayor. A fantastic transformation. And Mr. Vice Mayor, I can also see not only Mayor De Caro's insistence and discipline, but also your fantastic talent from Politecnico di Bari. And I think where political will is measured with, is matched with great skill in urban planning that comes from one of the leading schools of thought in Italy, this is fantastic. All of us remember how Mayor De Caro became famous from chasing people away from the parks during the COVID quarantine. But it seems that it was just as successful in bringing them back to public spaces we saw. And I think to conclude, I'm happy that the delegate from Finland is missing. So the competition between Lapland and Bari about who owns Santa Claus can be resolved in peace. Thank you so much. And it's with a great pleasure that we have the mayor of beautiful Riga, Latvia, Martin Stakis, here with us, and the word is for the mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Dear mayors, delegates, guests, organizers, my name is Martin Stakis and I'm mayor of one of two democratic metropolises by Baltic Sea, a city of Riga. And as you know, much of our city was, on infrastructure of the city was designed in Soviet time when the people and their well-being wasn't a priority. And it's not easy to change it, but this is what we are doing. So here in the old town, next to the best hotels in our famous opera house, there was still a large and ugly parking lot. And everyone was used to it, and it seems to be normal. So as you can see, we placed the plants, the benches, the bicycle sheds, and now it's gradually becoming the popular gathering spot for everyone. And we also plan to place a monument of our great poet Aspasia, a great poet of Riga. She was a political, actual intellectual, who was fighting, advocating the freedom of Latvia more than 100 years ago. And so far, many monuments, and I would say all the monuments in Riga was dedicated to the man. And I think this is the high time also to use the urban object to outstanding women in Latvia. And you know, there are many places like this in my city, what we can call the concrete jungles. And it's like this ex-parking lot, and we are changing it. And for the second year in a row, we are organizing the event called the Riga Summer, where plants, benches, parklets, tables, and chairs just are put around the city instead of places where used to be the parkings, just to show that also big metropolis can be livable and joyful cities. We also want to calm down the traffic in the city to give them more space to the cyclists and pedestrians. And this personally matters to me. We should not lose any lives in a town streets anymore. And I know what kind of tragedy it is to the families. In the evening, December 30, I had to pick up my phone and call to my family, to my mom, to my brother, to my sisters, by saying that their beloved father and grandfather has been, were no longer. And they were hit by the car in a city where allowed speed but maximum 50 kilometers per hour. So no one has to die in the traffic of the towns. And in this photo, you can see the poles, those small black plastic things that we placed to narrow down the roads and to soothe the traffic. And this became the biggest scandal of my life. I call it Polegate. People were divided in two fighting parts. The one part who supported it and said this is something we need, and of course another part who was totally against this. And but this gave us opportunity to talk about the fact that too many lives are still unnecessarily losing due to inadequate traffic infrastructure and also the driving culture. So calmer traffic, more space for to pedestrians and cyclists, and greener environment is what we are working with. And I believe it also will help us to achieve our one of the main goals, the first climate neutral city in the Baltics. So Riga is metropolis, as I have mentioned before, is more than 1 million inhabitants, but I come from the small town with only 17,000 inhabitants. And this was my town, and I knew everyone who lived in this town. And I think it's very important and it's, that residents feel this personal contact with the municipality. And here in this picture, you can see the employees of Riga City Council, the coordinators of the neighborhood communities. And they stand next to the Christmas tree, since we are talking about the Santa Clauses now. And this Christmas tree next to the city council. And the fun fact is that first decorated Christmas tree 512 years ago was placed in Riga. Yes, the first decorated Christmas tree. But coming back to this picture, each neighborhood has in turn a representative who helps residents to improve their life on their communities. And these coordinators are interested to help, to support everything from just installation, I don't know, the bench next to the building, till the organizing some local events and festivities. And what is much more important, they are the face of the municipality. So that's how we connect with the people inside the city. But the cities must also be outward looking. And I think we have to use the urban environment also for urban diplomacy. And cities should not remain silent. I myself acted when a passenger plane was hijacked by the Belarusian regime. It was a time when a World Hockey Championship took place in Riga. And I raised the white, red, white flag of free Belarus, next to the flags of other countries competing in the championship. Because of this, I had no crime case against me in Belarus. But this was a very popular move amongst the opposition of Belarus, and it breathed a new spark in the anti-regime movement over there. And here you can see in this picture the Latvian Freedom Monument, the most sacred place of my people, illuminated in Ukrainian colors. And we did this even week before the war started. And I see it as a beacon of hope, that inviting Ukrainian refugees to come to Riga. And this is the beacon that says that you are welcome to Riga, where you will receive love, kindness, and humanity. Because these are the true values of Riga, and they must be heard beyond the city limits. So thank you for your attention, and Slava Ukraini.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Maire.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Merci de nous transmettre aussi ces valeurs.
Thank you for sharing with us these urban values that you are here to discuss today. I would like to call on your neighbor from the Baltics, the mayor of Vilnius, who will now address you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, fellow mayors, do you remember what happened exactly 5 weeks ago? 5 weeks ago, one of the bloodiest criminals of 21st century delivered a speech declaring that he doesn't believe that the neighboring country actually exists. I speak about Putin, how he was talking on Ukraine. 4 weeks and 6 days ago, I was visiting Kiev and talking to Mayor Klitschko and planting a tree in a central square, a platen tree, to make the square look a little bit better and nicer. And 4 weeks and 5 days ago, the country was attacked on full scale by a big country, which was treated as a normal country still a month ago, which is definitely not a normal country anymore. And this is a reminder to all of us that in order to have vibrant public spaces, we have to have people in cities which are not destroyed. And when looking to Mariupol or suburbs of Kiev, Bucha and others, we see what is the most important thing. How street life looks is important, but the first things, you have to have this life on the streets. So that is our big thing right today. And actually, I would like to urge you, as we still have one day, one evening, maybe to draft an additional declaration about appealing to United Nations to declare a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Maybe it will lead to some other actions. Also to declare that there is a need for Marshall Plan after the war. We need to do this. Coming back to public spaces, my message is very simple. If you would switch on the first slide. Typically, when we hear public space, we think about the square, a park, or big green zones. But I am quite convinced that the most important things and the things which change our lives most are very simple things. But the problem is that it's so difficult to notice them. So if you would ask what is actually the most important public space in the cities, squares and parks, they do pop out immediately. But what about streets? Streets. We tend to think about streets as simply the space where cars are moving from one place to another. And sometimes we're very happy declaring part of the streets pedestrians, zero emission, and other fashionable words. But cars are needed anywhere. They're needed. And people live by the street, people cross the street, people work alongside the street. How to make the street holistic? How not to fall into another fallacy? Because half a century ago, everybody was talking that street is about for cars to move. Now some people say, and I was making the same mistake, that okay, we have to have simply enough space for bicycles to run across the street. But then somehow we noticed that not enough space for pedestrians are left or for trees. Then of course pedestrians and trees, but suddenly what about parking? If no parking, no small businesses by the street, with some exceptions, and people have to move and so on and so on. So my plea is for a holistic approach, which is very important, because if you listen to all kinds of experts, you will have very wide street, which will not be vibrant, livable, and not cozy to be. We have an example of very nice street, which is new in Vilnius. It's renewed post-Soviet street. Okay, I think it's a little new slide. Okay, the slides are moving without any order. So the first slide was about the street, which we tend to think that it is nice. Could you put the first slide, please? No. Next, please. This one. Yeah, thank you. This was. So this is quite a nice street. This was a typical Soviet street still 2 years ago. We turned it to a very nice street. I didn't want to have a picture of like Saturday flea market or something on the street full of people, because it's a festive occasion. But on every occasion, it looks like this. We have cars, we have pedestrians, not so many, but some. We have cars parked, we have lighting bulbs, we have everything. And this is a kind of very, very interesting street. How we come to this. So next slide, please. This is exactly the same street before the change and after the change, what we see. Before we had two wide car lane, we didn't have any normal parking lane, we didn't have any bicycle lane, and somehow we managed to combine all of it, greenery and everything. And this is an example how you may transform a street which immediately has completely different image, even without going radically about zero emission or pedestrian and having possibility for cars also to move around. If we move to other slide, please. So this is actually, again, before and after the main central business district avenue from above, which again was designed 25 years ago, according to this half a century old fashion, very wide for cars. And again, as my friend Martins was having turbulences about this small poles in the street, I as a mayor had turbulences about planting the trees in the middle of the main street in the villas, not by the street, but in the middle of the street. That, of course, was a manifesto saying that the street has to be greener, and still we have places for cars, but it's simply more cozy. When crossing the street, you see it immediately. And the last slide of mine will be our municipality building. Again, it is built 20 plus years ago, and it was built according to fashion of that day. But if you look to the picture before, it looks very cold, very uninviting, even with windows on the ground floor, closed from the ground floor. What we did a year ago is actually the same. Planting the trees and bushes by the street, putting some benches, opening up the windows, actually putting up some decorated lamps in the windows and leaving them for the night as well. And steadily the same building with almost zero investment. Of course, it's not zero, but the very small investment looks completely different. And then I would like to go to another topic. Why I'm showing this part of Vilnius, which is our municipality building, not because it's the most nice part of Vilnius, but because in order to change things, you have to start from yourself. So that's exactly what we do. If we want to tell other developments how you should build buildings and streets, of course we have to show that, yes, just look at our ground floor, we just did it and it works. And yes, I see that it works. And exactly after that, we did it with our own building, old building, people started to believe that, yes, this works. After my presentation, my colleague will disseminate to you some 4 postcards, which reflect our own strategy. And I'm really very proud that our strategy fits not in 300 master plan or some strategy, but in 4 postcards. That's basically 2 plus 2. One is a very small example of urban development, which this year won the top 4 best world urban development. It looks like very old, but preserved. Actually, it's 2 years old, which is kind of reflection of these principles. Then we have 12 principles of streets, 12, no more. That's 12 principles. We explain it to everyone. That's both about bicycles, about surfaces, about parking, about pedestrians, about greenery, just 12. And in this case, everybody's, even mayors, able to follow how it works. If we design a new street, it's a very simple sheet. You may put a plus or minus. Does a new plan meet the standards or not? If it's simple, it works. So 12. If you need copy with pride, it's actually copied also from New York, but with some additions for the smaller city, for a different climate zone and so on. So of course, there's possibility to develop. We have 10 architectural principles, because when I show this municipality building, I think it's a very important thing about the street, because the street is not just a place where the cars are moving. The street is also a place where pedestrians are moving, bicycles are moving, where the trees and bushes are growing, and also the ground floor of all bakeries, shops, offices. The ground floor is also part of the street. It has to be inviting. So its connection of the building and the street is a very important part of a good, vibrant city. So 10 architectural principles is also about the streets. It's simple. We're also able to follow it. I also always ask my chief architect not whether the new project is good or bad, but does it meet these 10 principles or not? So that's easy, that's transparent, and developers start to understand it. And the last one is actually from one particular street. This is from my friend Ariel referred to it already. It's called Street of Ukraine Heroes, which leads to Russian embassy. By the way, Russian embassy is kicked off of Lithuania because of what they did in Ukraine. And it's a slogan on the street, which says, Putin, the Hague is waiting for you. So I think that's very important. This is also very important on the street because political life is also taking part on the street. And political life is a very important part of our city life. And again, for the final remark, thank you for listening. And I really do know that even those cities which were spoiled by modernism tendencies, by the wars, may be reclaimed, may be made better, and especially for Ukraine. Again, it's such a pain to see destroyed cities, but I really do believe that in a decade from now, these cities would be even better than ours, the same as in Tyrannos after the earthquake. They may build the cities with an even better foundation, but you will have to have those foundations. So if you need some, copy with pride. Thank you so much.
Well, before I pour praise on the mayor of Vilnius, I'll have to make a disclosure. We were classmates at some point. So it's great to see a friend and an old classmate do such a wonderful job in running one of the best cities in Europe, but also to see his passion together with the mayors of Tallinn and Riga. Because as we said earlier, neighbors matter. So as I'm about to introduce a neighbor of mine, Mayor of Ohrid, it reminds me how important it is to have good neighbors. A neighbor who's not planning to invade or occupy or destroy, but a neighbor who's willing to work. North Macedonia was key in finding peaceful solutions with neighbors when it came to the name issue with Greece. Just a week ago, they concluded a census where they recognized all the minorities that live in Northern Macedonia, giving us all an example of a neighbor to be proud of. So our good friends from North Macedonia and the mayor of Ohrid, Kirill Pechakov, will now take the floor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and moderator. Dear ambassadors, excellencies, dear organizers of the Forum of the Mayors, dear colleague mayors, ladies and gentlemen, I'm especially pleased as a mayor of Ohrid, city protected by UNESCO, to be part of the Forum of the Mayors taking place here in Geneva, a city similar to mine in many aspects. By the way, this is my first mandate, and I am mayor for only 5 months. And this, what you will see, is part of my vision, ideas, and of course, projects that are for development for my city. Some of them have already started. Some of them is waiting for building permission. However, because it's a short time, that's why, only 5 months. However, modern lifestyle requires bringing other decisions in accordance to contemporary life, but ones that won't harm the ecosystem and environment in general. As mayors, we have to seek for new opportunities with a single aim, to improve the quality of life in our cities. In that direction, as local authorities, on the top of our agenda is preserving and expanding the green city areas. In other words, transforming the city into a green city. In the same time, make it sustainable. That means that putting infrastructural projects into practice has to be in a correlation with the green agenda, introducing innovative solutions based on expert opinion. This is the direction of the current infrastructural undertakings in Ohrid. I would mention the reconstruction of the Boulevard Makedonski Prosvetiteli, one of the main city routes leading to the city port. In the project documentation preparation, we put accent to not disturbing the city authenticity, sustainability, and of course, creating green surfaces. In doing so, the non-authentic materials, asphalt, concrete paving blocks, and others are removed, thus replaced with granite cubes, the white non-ochre cobblestone, which is to be set on the driving lane. The walking pavement is so planned to be made with granite tiles. Between the two driving lanes, a green surface has been planned. The term green city does not only mean creating green areas, but also reducing the motor vehicles pollution. For that purpose, in the scope of this project, we plan building a two-way cycling lane, and during the summer season, the movement of motor vehicles on this boulevard is going to be restricted. Furthermore, our next project to be realized is building a cycling lane to the St. Stephen settlement. That will mean creating cycling infrastructure safe for all traffic participants. Our aim is to connect the whole coast of the Ochre Lake with a cycling lane, providing safety, enjoyment, and lake view to all cyclists. In doing this, we will reduce the car traffic, especially during the summer season. As local authorities, we plan to do a complete reconstruction of the Chinar Square, an old authentic part of Ohrid, where the oldest tree known as Ohrid Chinar, 11th century old, is situated. Our plan, such as granite cubes and tiles, aiming to give it its old authentic look with the Ohrid cobblestone. Finally, I would mention the project for the theme park. For this project, we have chosen a location in the sports center Biljani Izvori, which is close to the city center. In the park, there will be put children equipment, slides, and trains. The aim is to provide fun for the kids and adults, but looking at the big picture, this park will be situated within the sports center, next to the Biljana Springs site and the walking zone by the Studenčista Channel. This would mean that in the nice sunny days in Ohrid is abundant with, having more than 265 days per year, citizens and tourists will have one more location to have fun and do sports. This would reduce the traffic base, especially in the sunny days. The primary aim as mayors is to succeed in finding solutions to projects that would not harm the future of the next generations. However, we must take the financial situation of the municipalities in consideration. For a municipality small as the Ohrid one, striving with the financial situation, it is a challenge to create sustainable policies in crisis situation as the current COVID pandemics, where the income, especially from the tourism, is very low or non-existent till now. Thus, to achieve the global objective and redirecting the world to be eco-friendly and sustainable, all participants have to cooperate to share experiences, but also realize big financially demanding projects in partnerships. This forum is a huge step forward for this in this direction. Thank you.
Pierre, just one moment to remind something that because we see people coming in and out, and we just want to make sure that you know, or just to refresh your mind, that there is a reception at 6 o'clock, which is offered by the Swiss mission in Geneva, and it is very close here to the Serpentine. So it will be a great opportunity for continuing this discussion and networking. This is just to let you know and to remind you that there is this reception at 6 o'clock. Sorry.
Merci Doris. Nous espérons.
Thank you. These discussions have been extremely interesting. We hope you're paying attention and that you'll continue to pay attention right up until 6 p.m. And now I'd like to say that we may change locations in Europe. We're going to move to the Atlantic side with our ancient European cities, which will share hopefully different ideas on greenification and adapting to the new world. We're now going to hand the mic over to Mr. Vitor Manuel Gonzalez Alexo, Mayor of Portugal.
Messieurs, dames, Excellences.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to have been invited to attend this event at a global organization, the largest organization, most important one, the United Nations. I think it is of paramount importance to be meeting here today with other mayors and sharing our experiences, listening to each other and discussing the global challenges that we are all currently undergoing. Lome is a municipality, a city in the south of Portugal. We have approximately 70,000 residents. It's a small municipality in terms of European sizes, and our economy is based on tourism. Our region has visitors from all over the world. We have about 110 different nationalities in our region. So this is very important. This is very interesting, I think. We have such a rich community. We launched our environmental policy several years ago, and we have experienced quite a lot in this domain. We have done a lot of work on adaptation, mitigation policies. We have worked on climate change mitigation policies. We also do a lot of work on the SDGs. And that is why, before I present our project to you, I would like to let you know that we have experience with social gardens, different projects, agricultural projects with organic products. We've been working on this for several years. We will continue along these lines. We have public transport, which is free in our main cities. We call on people to walk around the city, to not use cars. Which, as we know, run on gas and are pollutants. In our schools and official institutions, public administration buildings, we have installed 1.5 megawatt. They run on 1.5 megawatts. So when it comes to using solar energy, we have ambitious plans. In the coming months, we plan on elaborating these plans. We have approximately 40 kilometers of bicycle routes for people who want to use bikes to move around. We also have a plan that was developed in Spain for the metro. We've implemented this plan in Lule as well. We have just approved plans at the municipal level. Our municipal assembly, which is our local parliament, has just approved the first climate action plans in our region, which are based on on information from international organizations. These are new generation plans which provide us with ways to adapt and mitigate as well as produce. We are working on these plans right now, together with numerous people, with civil society, with enterprises. We are all working on climate adaptation plans. We understand that we must act now. We have no time to lose. We do have other plans that we are currently developing, but now I'm going to share with you this first photo in my presentation. The goal of this project is to make a link, a connection between the marine port of Vila Moura with our airport. You can travel this route by foot, by bike. It's 14 kilometers long. We've already completed 5 kilometers of this route. This is a forest route where you can enjoy nature without counteracting biodiversity values, while still complementing biodiversity and enjoying the beauty of our municipality. Our region enjoys very rich biodiversity, but we need for people to realize that we have no future if we do not take care of and protect our natural capital, which surrounds us. So we need to establish new relations between our economy, our society, and nature. We need a new relationship which will be based on respect for our environmental values, for nature. We need to protect our plants, our nature, animals. We have a rich variety of fish in our region. This is all characterized by this plan characterizes nature, and we protect nature through this plan. As you can see in our photos, it's a beautiful area because in our municipality, we plan on using solar energy. We plan on building new housing. This is part of our economy that we plan on continuing to incorporate. However, we need to take a step back. We need to ensure that we don't resort to artificial means. We need to look to the future with a view to making it sustainable.
And lastly, we have just established just a month ago a natural reserve which makes up 136 hectares. It's a large area. And I must say that one has to be brave sometimes to resist. Well, everybody wants to live on seaside. We are convinced that time has come to strike a balance between blind development and our need to look into the future with hope to ensure that the future that we live, that our children live in a worthy world. So this involves political, administrative work at all levels of the municipality of Lule. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire, for a very convincing case on how urbanism and nature can coexist, and there are creative ways to co-live with nature. So wonderful work, extremely impressive. Now, not the Mayor Bon?
No, Madrid first.
Okay, wonderful. So Madrid first. I am delighted to invite to the stage the Deputy Mayor of Madrid, Begoña Vilases Sanchez. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'd like to take a moment from you before addressing the issue that concerns us in this session, I want to spend a minute of our time recalling what's actually happening in Ukraine. We do have a barometer in Madrid. We measure how the people feel about how we work in the municipality, how they feel about the problems we are actually going through. And when we are talking about ecologism, having a good environment is actually a very important issue for people from Madrid. It's actually the third biggest problem. But things are going so fast and everything is changing so much that we actually realize that we Europeans we probably took too many things for granted, and at least the people from Madrid, and we are very, very far away from Ukraine. People from Madrid are actually very worried about it, really worried about what's actually going on in Ukraine, how people that were living like all of us, we're having a house and a regular life and a regular job, and we're going back and forth. There's no place they can go back to. So there's no way I can start talking here before thinking about these families, because thinking about these mothers that are actually living in Madrid, because we're getting refugees just as much as, well, maybe not as much, but a lot are coming with their kids and going to our schools, and they're having their fathers fighting and using weapons where they've never used before. So our heart is actually with them. Tomorrow, Madrid will present a project that is called District 22. Madrid has 21 districts. It's a very large city. It's actually the second largest city of Europe. 3.2 million people are actually living in Madrid. And there is we have 21 districts, and we decide to name a 22nd after Kiev. And we are going to present, in front of you all the ways that we are actually having to help them. People that are coming to Madrid, and there are people that actually remain over there, because we need to give them hope. We need to let them think there's going to be a day after all this finished. So all my support to them, and they have all our support. And I also want to thank UNECE to involve local governments, because we did have the state moment, but we cities, we are actually the skin of the administration. We see the problems first, we feel the problems first, we can act more immediately, we are faster. We just work with the persons. So we see this need to be on front of this. And, it's good for the United Nations to realize that we are a principal actor in doing this. So thanks for having these spaces so we can all talk and, share experience and see how we can work together. Today, I'm going to speak to you about one of my, I will say, let me use this language, but it's my baby, because it's a dream that I had since I was a kid. I live in a city that is, we have the problem that, as all other cities, pollutions. When pollution comes hard, we are a very big city, so we have a lot of trouble, of course, but we also have desertification. Desertification is not something that we talk a lot about, because it only concerns the cities of the south of Europe, but we do have a problem in Madrid with that. Actually, the south part of Madrid is becoming very dry. It's not raining as it's supposed to. The soil is degrading. So you go out to my city, you'll find that we have a beautiful city. Before COVID, it was the second in Europe with the highest expectancy of life. The women in Madrid, we live up to 87.8 years old, which is a success in the history of humanity. COVID changed everything, so we need to measure it again, but we have a really good quality of life. It's really nice to live in Madrid. Let me tell you, you're all invited because it's very nice to live in Madrid. But if you go out of this, outside of the city, you'll find that there's a dry space that actually divides Madrid from the rest, from the metropolitan area. So we decided to solve that problem, and we decided that after this mandate, we're not going to plant, a park, which is a major thing. I'm going to plant a park. And because when you plant a park, you usually choose these trees that, grow very fast. So when you go and run for the next elections, the trees are beautiful and big, right? But those are not actually the trees of my city. The trees of my city, the kind of trees we have, the pines, we have the oak trees we have, they grow very, 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 very slow. So we are starting to busk a forest. It's called the Metropolitan Forest that is not going to be planned for the next elections, but for the next generations. And we're not talking about a small project. We are talking about one of the biggest and most ambitious forests that they're going to be planted in Europe for the next decade. We're talking about 75 kilometers of forest. We are talking about 100,000 of new trees that are going to surround the whole city of Madrid. We're talking about start planting in the south of Madrid, which is actually the poorest area, most vulnerable area. So we can provide the people that have more difficult life with good quality spaces so they can, develop, and, all the kids have the same opportunities have in the rest of the city of Madrid. We're talking about 170,000 tons of CO2 that will be absorbed by this forest. We're talking about starting with corridors from the forest to the very heart of the city. So you can actually go from the very center of the city to any part of Madrid, walking through woods, which is, I think, a marvelous idea. And we are not only planning it, but planting it. In 2 years, we already planted over 63 hectares, and we are involving the whole city of Madrid in doing it. We're involving the kids that actually go to the kindergarten so they can plant a tree. We're involving the families that lose one person in Madrid, one citizen, so they can remember that person forever by planting a tree. We're talking about taking from people from the corporations in their corporations strategies so they can plant, or they can just put money and planting the tree. That we are involving the whole corporation, because as someone here said before, I heard it from, I remember who said that, but I want this to be the project from all the city, of all the citizens of Madrid. As I tell you, this project to be developed is going to take us about over 10 years. I hope in 10 years, people like us come and I want to make it bigger, because it's actually a dream that is actually becoming reality. Is something that I think is the way the cities changed their mind, because we have always grown against the nature, and today we're growing with the nature, which I think is, changing totally the point of view. So you are all invited to Madrid. I would love to show you what we're doing right now, and I would love all of you to have your own ring, your metropolitan forest, because as I told you, we can do these things because we are cities, and we realize the problems first, and we can give solutions first. So thank you for your attention.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much for having made us dream, but also for having allowed us to think about long-term transformation of cities, which we're experiencing now, but also time in the future. We will now move from south to the, oh no, sorry, we are staying with, we will move to Bonn. I apologize, says the speaker. Yes, we'll move to Northeastern Europe. I will give the floor to the mayor of Bonn, Germany, who will speak remotely. Thank you.
Madam Executive Secretary, fellow mayors, esteemed audience, let me start with a very serious note. Without peace, we are unable to build the future we want, the livable cities we envision, and a world leaving no one behind. The past 24 years have made Bonn a powerful house for sustainability inside the United Nations, striving for a better future. This future that is at stake if the very foundation of it is knocked over and destroyed on the ground, and that is peace. 77 years ago, the United Nations was established to safeguard this very foundation. I believe in the vision of sustainable, peaceful world and the UN as a guardian of peace. I believe in the democratic values of the European Union, and I join the UN General Assembly in their condemnation of the war in Ukraine as a breach of the UN Charter. As mayor of Bonn, I have also joined the Alliance of Support for the Victims of this war, finding refuge in our nations and cities now. Looking at the United Nations campus on the Rhine, I set my hope on multilateralism and on peace to return in Ukraine and in all other conflict zones of this world. I have already said that in the past 25 years, we have made Bonn a powerhouse for sustainability. It is here that the United Nations is shaping a sustainable future. When it comes to sustainability, cities are pioneers in implementing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And sustainable development can only take place in harmony with nature. To be sustainable, a city must be green, a city that is resilient in the face of a growing population and increasing settlement of needs of natural disasters and climate change. In Bonn, we have taken the decision to become climate neutral by 2035. Our focus is on preserving our natural green-blue environment as an infinite source of recreation and health-related benefits for our children and our citizens. As you can see in the picture taken from my office window, Bonn is a very green city with over half of our territory under nature conservation or landscape protection. And you can see that green spreads right across the city. Trees, roadside green parks, cemeteries, private and community gardens create breathable spaces, allowing for cooling in the summer, for rainwater to sickle into the ground, and for insects, birds, and other animals to find microhabitats in Bonn. Please show the next slide. We are currently working on the follow-up to our biodiversity strategy, which was adopted in 2010. Besides management of our conservation areas like the city forest, we have also made upgrading biodiversity across the city a priority, for example, with community gardens and insect hotels as shown in the picture above. And along with other cities and regions around the world, which I can say as a signatory to the Edinburgh Declaration and a member of the Advisory Committee of Cities to the Biodiversity Convention, we are confident that the next global biodiversity framework and plan of action for the subnational and local level will be adopted by the parties in Kunming this year. I strongly believe in multi-level collaboration and a holistic approach, bringing together the needs of the climate, biodiversity, land, water, and people. In our cities, We all have to respond to the challenges faced if we are to secure a livable future. We must combine our sectoral efforts in a way that moves our action into the mainstream. We did this in Bonn with our Sustainability Strategy 2019, as did many other cities elsewhere. If we act in a coordinated manner, we can address multiple issues with a single project, as you can see in the next slide. You may be aware that Bonn has introduced various initiatives to steer the mobility transformation in recent years. I won't be speaking about e-mobility or the expansion of bicycle lanes in this session. Instead, I would like to give you a sneak preview of one of our small-scale projects on biodiversity niches. This is one of the first bus stop roofs that has been greened in Bonn. And while the greening of roofs over 200 square meters was made mandatory long ago and a new funding program for roof screening has been launched last year, many small spaces like this bus shelter offer additional protection for the future, both here in Bonn and in other densely populated cities. While we are unable to expand protected areas beyond the existing ones, we can upgrade our biodiversity and encourage citizens to embrace and live with nature and thus benefit from the emotional value derived from urban nature. This brings me to my next slide. My last picture shows a wooden house with a farm garden located in an idyllic, peaceful setting right in the middle of a forest. It's a place you feel instantly drawn to, as a reminder of past times and as a place of hope for the future. Let me introduce our House of Nature, our environmental education center situated in our FSC certified city forest, where we planted 25,000 new trees during the Trees in Cities Challenge. A wonderful destination for children and families, featuring educational programs on the subjects of nature and sustainability. It's a place for experience, exploration, and play. I have been there many times with my own child, and I greatly cherish the House of Nature. I also value the effect that it has on people. Nature is not just about blue-green solutions. Nature is about feeling emotionally connected. That's why a vibrant city of the future, a city my son and your child or children will live in, can only be a city that is connected to nature. I would just like to thank you and ICI for opening up the space for this vital dialogue. And speaking also as a member of the ECLI Global Executive Committee, I am delighted that you, Madam Executive Secretary Alga Yerova, have brought the Forum of Mayors to life and are helping it to thrive. Thank you very much for your attention.
Vielen Dank, Frau Bürgermeisterin. As the mayor of Ungarn joins the stage, it was very important to hear from the mayor of Bonn, first about the legacy of Bonn as being the temporary capital of Germany in a divided Germany, and how a lot of the consequences of war take decades to heal, and how Germany has now been at the forefront of the welcoming of the refugees, and many of the mayors have committed to the 1% initiative, which is the equivalent of 1% of their population in terms of welcoming refugees from the Ukraine. So I want to thank the mayor of Bonn and many others who are doing the same, but also the very innovative, cost-effective ways to mix rapid urban development, but also with nature-based solutions like the urban furniture that we saw from the examples of Bonn and the urban gardening heavily underway. So I see the mayor of Ungarn is here. Moldova is also in the border of the conflict and war. So we want to hear both, maybe some feedback on what's going on in Moldova, being a border region of mostly affected by the waves of refugees, but also on how, in the meantime, running creative and nature-based solutions in our cities. So Mr. Alexandru Amros, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, organizers and dear colleagues, mayors. My name is Alexander Ambros. I came from Moldova, the city of Ungeni, where I am the mayor. Because Moldova is situated between Ukraine and Romania. The first refugee who fled the country was in Hungary, and also in Moldova. Now it's about more than 100,000 of Ukrainian refugees stayed in Moldova. And what I want to explain is what is the background of these people, because Moldova, unfortunately, is one of the poorest country in Europe. Also, the background of these people, it's a little same. The people who cannot afford to move to West remain in Moldova. Why? Because Moldova, everybody speak in Romanian language, but also everybody speak in Russia, because we are also former Russian Republic, and these people feel very comfortable in our country. Today, April 4, our president Maia Sandu declared April 4 the day of shower and the sign of the victims of Ukrainians. We express our solidarity, and we are sure that Ukraine will win, because Ukraine have a lot of friends. Thank you very much. How I say, my name of my city is Ungeni. Ungeni is situated on the border of with European Union. Its geographical position is called the Western Gate in Europe. You have about 40,000 inhabitants, and I am a mayor since 2007. A lot of time. Maybe not because I am so good, but because every election it's very few much better than me, and people choose me again and again. Okay, I a little kidding to rise everybody moon. Okay, just I look I choose to speak in this session where you speak about vibrant public spaces, because you have some experience in this field, and I will speak about several projects. One of the projects is about our Central Park. I can see what is there. Okay, it is good. You can see how was before and how is after. Actually, I don't want to speak about bricks. I don't want to speak about concrete, cement, roof, and so on. So I want to speak about people. How you done it? How you done it? If you speak about this park, I want to say it was one initiatives of our public administration to involve in one project what was started by United Nations Development Program, and we organized the so-called Association of Native Ungenians. What means Organization of Native Ungenians? It's Ungenians who now is abroad. It's a lot of people from Republic of Moldova go abroad to look for a better life, or look better conditions to work, and we think this diaspora is a huge power for our cities, but they not in the city now. He is temporary abroad. Why not to ask them what is the priority, what we must have done in Ungeni, in my city, and we might survive. And we ask also representative of diaspora. A lot of them speak about Central Park. The name of the Central Park is Mico Cluj, not accidentally, because Cluj-Napoca is our sister city who helped us a lot, not just with money, but also with experience. And we really transformed this Central Park in the place for everyone, for children, for adults, for elderly people. And we just organized fundraising company. And I want to say what less than 1 month, you receive more than 100,000 euros just in 1 month. It was the money from our migrants. And in this issue, I want to share this experience, maybe some of the colleagues, mayors, can use this experience. Just think about your diaspora. Think about how to keep this bridge, how to keep these links with people who is not now living in your country, in your city, but they think together with us. They know about us. We just need to ask them when you do one or another priority, one another things in our city. The second one projects, it's about our central stadium. It's also a vibrant place, and I will explain why. We have another one experience connected with the people. We created about 12 years ago, we created so-called Ungain Community Foundation. What means Ungain Community Foundation? It's a fund who the founder, it's not City Hall. The founder is several NGOs, and also the founder is some of the representative of private sector. But this fund solves the problem of the city. And every year, City Hall also offers some amount of money from the budget, because this fund prove through the years he must be trustable. And the Central Stadium will start with a lot smaller one projects from Ungain Community Foundation. It's foundation declare every year to call for proposals, and every initiative groups or NGOs come to apply. And what is the good result of this applying for this fund? Not just only the things what they done, but it's like a primary school for people who want first time in their life to apply for funds. We teach our citizens from our Hungarians how to one idea to put on the sheet, how to make a budget, how to explain this budget, how to make a report, and so on. And sometimes when some of the NGOs told me, Mayor, we receive one good, very good grants, I asked them, where you learn how to do it, and the answer, first our project was Ungain Community Foundation, and I am very proud because it's like a primary school for all the people who wants to learn how to apply for donors for partners. Also, another one place, it's about social infrastructure. And one of our neighbor in the city, it's called Vasilika. It's not the center of the city. We start to create some multifunctional center. How you done it? Not about roof, not about exchanging the window. It's important, but not so much. Important is what we created in all the sector of our city. We have 7 sectors in our city, and we created so-called local initiatives groups. And these local initiatives groups have leaders. And when some of the citizens from Hungary come to City Hall and say, Mayor, I have an excellent idea. I want to do maybe playground close to my house, and so on. So first questions I ask, name, surname, what is your address, and what sector do you live? I live in the sector X. Okay, do you know who is the leader of local group of initiatives? Because this idea must come to City Hall, not from each people who live in the city. It must come from the leaders of initiative groups. They must discuss in the group of the sector what is the priority and come here. And in this situation, I solve the problem not for 1 or 2 people. I solve the problem of all the sectors, because they discuss it before they come to City Hall. What is the priority? First priority, second one, and so on. So the conclusion is, if you want to create vibrant public spaces, in my point of view, you need to create vibrant society. You need to create people who wants to involve, not just who wait City Hall to do something. Vibrant public spaces means vibrant public society. Okay, and several words about our perspectives. I'm very short of time, but Hungary is a pioneer of a lot of projects of European Union finance. Also, we joint operation program who is financed by European Union. We will cross-border project with Romania. We will build more than 20 kilometers of sidewalk lanes, also bicycle tracks. Also, we will change absolutely the lighting system in our city. And when we speak about lighting system, not speak about just wire or changing the structures, we speak about the intelligent public control system. What it means, not just to light some sector. You need to think about how not to pollute too much some of the sectors, because Moldova have no energy. We import all the energy from Russian Federation, and that's why you need to think about efficiency. And now we speak not just for lighting, not just to illuminating some sector, but how not to pollute too much some of the area. It's another level. And I want to finish my speech. I want to wish everybody to be happy. Just every day, think about very small things, what makes you happy. Put it small happiness together, and we can to be happy every day. Enjoy life, be healthy, and peace for everyone. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that little bit of happiness. I recall that no matter the beauty of projects, of course, it's all about the human societies living there. We all remain committed and attached to that, and that's really what drives change. We are moving on now to a little more north in Europe. We're moving to Sweden. We are going to be hearing from Mr. Peter Danielsson, the Mayor of Helsingborg. He will be participating remotely. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, distinguished guests and fellow mayors. It's a great honor for me to take part in this forum. And cities matters also in wartime, and the current ongoing war reinforces the need for even more platforms for cooperation and action in uncertain times. It is clear that we must all work together to ensure democracy and human rights for all citizens and a sustainable future for our children, allowing the refugees from Ukraine and elsewhere to define a new home away from home in our cities. While speaking on the topic of vibrant public spaces, greener cities, and nature-based solutions, I will still have a focus on co-creation and the value this brings in terms of quality of life and the overall integration of a city, the inclusive city. I'd like to tell you a story of a special neighborhood called Drottninghög that was once an area with high unemployment, exclusion, and insecurity. Now it's being revitalized, not just for the citizens, but together with them. This story began with us knocking on 300 doors. We sat down with the residents over a cup of coffee and asked how they wanted to develop the area and be a part of the planning process. And we started renovating homes based on their needs and what they could afford. This citizen involvement spread to outdoor spaces and green areas as well. And in the picture here, you can see a greenhouse and an urban garden developed by the local residents. And it's not only a place for old and young to co-create together, it also counteracts loneliness and creates a safe space that the community owns together. Next picture, please. In this picture, you see a playground that is created together with the kids in the region, and it's called the Dragons and Princesses. And we have created it together with the children living in this area. And we think that every children has a right to play. And this is just one of 8 themed playgrounds that we have developed together with children in Helsingborg. And creating this kind of unique playground also encourages movement within the city. I can almost say with full certainty that there is no family in Helsingborg that has not taken a Sunday bike ride to go visit this playground. Next picture, please. And here you see a part of the waterfront walk that I had to delete from my speech, but in the right part of the picture, you see a very small part of what we call Gröningen, which is a green oasis in the city by the sea. And Gröningen is maybe an even better example of how we are creating a common home for citizens in the public space. And this is a summer living room for residents and visitors in Helsingborg, a prime location that we have left open and free to everyone. And Gröningen was inaugurated during our International Housing Expo, H99. And during H22 City Expo this summer, we will open our new Blue Park. And next picture, please. And here you can see the building of our new urban marine park. We call it Havoteket. And our vision is to extend the public space to include the ocean and bring people closer to our vital neighbor, the sea. And Havoteket is a prototype of a future learning environment that focuses on sustainability issues linked to the ocean. And we develop it and explore this together with businesses and academic partners in Helsingborg. Next picture, please. Here we are walking by just one of our main squares outside the Culture House of Helsingborg. We're right now testing a mobile park where we let trees start growing in the city instead of at a nursery elsewhere. In this way, the trees starts benefiting the city environment at an earlier stage, and the residents get to enjoy the beautiful greenery. And we can also add greenery to industrial areas and other spaces where planting is not possible. And next picture, please. And here is something else that I'm very proud of, as you maybe can see on my face in this picture. And Helsingborg was one of the first cities to join the UN's Trees in the City Challenge, and 18,000 new trees were planted in Helsingborg in only 2 years. And we ran a campaign where we challenged the residents, businesses, and associations to join in and plant trees of their own. And we have made a pledge to match their efforts, so we plant a tree for everyone they plant. And every year for the past 30 years, the 5th graders in Helsingborg have planted a tree. And by doing so, we integrate the awareness and necessary greening in our city into the school's curriculum. Next picture, please. And this is my last. And this summer, Helsingborg will invite you all and the whole world to come and co-create sustainable solutions at the H22 City Expo, which is a 35-day innovation fest. And much of the open air exhibitions will feature our take on ensuring that our city is our home, that the public spaces are vibrant. And you are all invited by me and the UNECE to come and attend a special session on the necessity of local partnerships for implementing the 2030 agenda more rapidly. If you choose to accept the invitation, which I hope, I will ensure that you will enjoy a wonderful experience at the H22 City Expo, because I'm really convinced that cities play a vital role in driving the green transition. And I'm so proud to offer Helsingborg as an arena for collective action on the challenges we face together. So thanks for listening and warm welcome to Helsingborg this summer.
Thank you for the energetic talk, and thanks for sharing, Mr. Mayor. It has been very refreshing to see how civic engagement never goes out of fashion. And whether you are 1 or 101, there's always something to contribute to the city. And once you've been a shareholder in design, you're definitely a shareholder in upkeep of those investments and make sure the longevity of the public work. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, Peter Danielsson. And then I want to invite to the stage the Mayor of Debrecen, Mr. Laszlo Papp. So we go from Northern Europe again to Central Europe. I know you just had elections yesterday in Hungary, so you must have had an early flight after the campaign, and hopefully this time in Geneva will be refreshing and catching up with energy. Mr. Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Laszlo Papp, Mayor of Debrecen. Debrecen is the second largest city with 210,000 inhabitants located in East Hungary. Debrecen has become the knowledge center of the region with nearly 80,000 students, of which more than 30,000 are university students. Please. Yes. Okay. Urban environmental policy considers students, local professionals, and the citizens of Debrecen as a resource. We believe that a cohesive, like-minded community with a wide range of values is the key to Debrecen's environmentally sustainable development. Based on this principle, the city of Debrecen has set up an environmental task force whose members are environmental and nature conservation professionals, students, and civilians who want to take action for the city. Next picture, please. One of the largest industrial developments in Central Europe is currently taking place in Debrecen in a way that we pay increased attention to the use of renewable energy sources in the design of industrial areas. The energy needs of the new factories will be provided with solar and geothermal energy. BMW's new plant in Debrecen, in which series production will begin in 2025, will be a benchmark plant of the company's latest electric platform, the Neue Klasse. The factory is scheduled to be a zero-emission plant. Next picture, please. As it was presented at the Glasgow Climate Conference, the government is committed to making Hungary climate neutral by 2050. Many of the measures of our city are in line with the national goals. Currently, there are 2 fixed track tram lines in the city, which number is going to grow in the next years, as we are going to construct 2 further tram lines. The replacement of the complete bus fleet of the city is underway at the moment. From 2024, the most state-of-the-art Euro 6 and purely electric vehicles will be in operation in Debrecen. Next picture, please. Debrecen gives home to the first nature reserve of Hungary, namely the Great Forest, which was registered in 1939. 34% of our city is forest. And just as a curiosity, let me say that the same indicator is 25% the case of Vienna and 27% in the case of Barcelona. In addition to preserving existing values, we aim to achieve the climate objectives and increase biodiversity by expanding and developing green spaces. That is exactly why Debrecen deemed it important to find ways to develop without losing green spaces. The rarity of the new water park, which you can see in the picture, is that it provides space for more water surfaces and the related service facilities in a smaller area than before. We have launched the Green City program, which primarily serves the renewal and improvement of green areas in housing estates and that of the living environment. The program covers 10 districts of the city and brings renewal in quality for a total of more than 500,000 square meters of green space. Next picture, please. We have to face a number of challenges with regard to our green areas. Among Other things, the fact that Debrecen does not have a surface water flow is a great challenge for us. Furthermore, the increasing droughts and reduced rainfall caused by climate change have led to a significant decrease in groundwater levels in the Great Forest in recent decades. We are responding to this challenge by launching the largest water management investment in the country, which is called the Sibakwa Program. The program allows the water of Hungary's second largest river, the Tisza, to reach Debrecen through a new 16-kilometer long closed and open canal system. Thanks to this development, we can take care of the revitalization of the oldest nature reserve in the country. We can create a green corridor in the western part of the city, and we can combine our green developments with water improvements. As you can see, our city has faced many challenges. Currently, the Ukrainian-Russian war near Debrecen means a huge challenge. The Hungarian-Ukrainian border is located 120 kilometers from Debrecen. The common goal of our city is peace, so we clearly condemn the Russian invasion. Residents of our city act as one to help refugees from Ukraine with exemplary cooperation. We are in contact with two of our Ukrainian partner cities, Uzhgorod, Beregovo. We have already sent humanitarian aids to these cities and ensure the reception and accommodation of the refugees. In a few days, 40 students will be arriving from the Kiev County Sports School, and we will provide them accommodation, meals, and trainings. We trust that the unity of the countries of Europe can stop the Russian invasion. Thank you for your attention.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Thank you for that breath of fresh air, very aquatic air. During this Forum of Mayors, we decided to invite some guests from outside our region, outside the UNECE region, that is. They can perhaps give us some ideas from other regions of the world, and we can hear and learn about how mayors from other regions of the world consider our ideas and issues of green cities and how we can move forward with change. So we're very pleased today to welcome Miss Elizabeth Nakwatsa-Toyosaki. I hope I pronounced it well. The Mayor of Accra in Ghana. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. And good afternoon to everybody, especially Madam Chair and all participants here, all protocol observed. I am the first female mayor for Accra after 125 years. And I occupy this seat less than 6 months now. So though I'm new, I'm also very vibrant in issues ahead. I take this opportunity to give you a brief about Accra. Accra is the capital city of Ghana. As the capital city, Accra has the highest concentration of commercial and social activities. Accra has a duty and a daily influx of 2 million people coming in to visit and to conduct businesses. They also come from adjoining districts, regions, and countries. The annual carbon dioxide emission in Accra is very high. In 2015, there was about 2.4 million of tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And it is expected to increase by 2030. Air pollution has become Accra's #1 environmental risk, responsible for about 8% of total annual mortality, which is disproportionately borne by infants and the elderly. Measures to make buildings and the central business district climate neutral. We are introducing greening to already existing buildings within the central business district to help absorb and reduce carbon dioxide emission levels. The first one we're doing is we're using the Mokolam shopping mall as a starting point. Secondly, introduction of renewable energy sources such as solar panels as alternative energy sources for shops and other uses. Thirdly, greening to available open spaces, monumental and heritage sites within the city. This is in tandem with SDG 7, 11, and 13. However, some initiatives have already taken place with regards to greening the city of Accra. In the area of green energy, in conjunction with EU, we implemented energy efficiency audit of some public schools. We also to encourage green buildings. We provided 30 to 50% rebate on fees for construction permits and property rates. We have also identified some key public and open spaces for greening, for beautification and regeneration. Dear cherished audience of this house, we really are proud to offer this. And on this note, let me take this or use this opportunity to acknowledge our partners in development among everyone. I want to say a very big thank you for giving me this opportunity. God bless you all.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and congratulations on such an achievement, being the first woman mayor of Accra, but also for proving that some of the solutions work north and south and east and west. All it takes is political will. And I think including people as shareholders in the mayor's job is great, but becoming a mayor shareholder in the people's job is greater. And I think rebating and helping people retrofit or helping people in the solutions that they've already figured out that they work, and matching those contributions or helping as a rebate or a discount is a fantastic example from Accra. So thank you so much, Madam Mayor, and we look forward to visiting you in Accra next time. I will now go from Africa to Northern America and give the floor to Madam Lisa Helps, who's the mayor of Victoria in Canada. The floor is yours, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It is really an honor to be there with all of you, even though I'm not there in person. I'm just so inspired by all of the things that I've heard so far in this session. And so just want to thank all of my colleagues for the work you're doing in your cities and in your communities. It's inspiring. And even though we're worlds apart in some ways, the projects that we're working on are really bringing us close together. I'm here in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. And in Canada, when we speak publicly, we begin with an acknowledgement of the Indigenous lands that our cities are on, because Canada is in a process of reconciliation and decolonization. And so I'm coming to you from the city of Victoria, which is located on the lands of the Lekwungen speaking people, known today as the Songhees and the Esquimalt nations. And certainly much of the work we're doing on vibrant public spaces, green cities, and nature-based solutions draws on the thousands of years of wisdom from the Indigenous nations. With respect to the crisis in the Ukraine right now, Victoria, BC, Canada is even further away from the Ukraine than Madrid. I noted the deputy mayor of Madrid noted the distance between the Ukraine and Madrid. Yet, like all of you, we stand strong with the Ukraine. Since the moment the invasion took place, we have had the Ukraine flag flying in front of City Hall. We have lit our City Hall up in blue and yellow, and we'll keep the flag flying, and we'll keep our City Hall lit up until this war ends and this occupation stops. In the most strongest terms possible, myself and my council stand with the Ukraine and with all of you. I don't remember who said it earlier, that with all of these friends, the Ukraine will definitely win. I'm going to speak today, like many of you had, on some of the changes in Victoria that were taking place. And the key point that I want to make is, as we address vibrant public spaces, green spaces, and nature-based solutions, we are multi-solving. And by that, I mean, we're doing more than one thing at the same time. We're creating more inclusive cities, more equitable cities. We're creating safer cities. We're addressing climate adaptation and mitigation. We're increasing human health and well-being. And I think most importantly, we're creating joyful cities and opportunities for our residents to connect and to have a sense of belonging. So if we can go to the next slide. This is a picture of Government Street. It's a main street in Victoria, and it was designed as a pedestrian street in about 5 decades ago. But interestingly, even though it was designed as such, it still had cars going through it until the beginning of the pandemic. So the architecture was put in to have it pedestrian only, but the political will was not there. And so it was a car-oriented street for its last 5 decades. Like many of your cities, during the pandemic, businesses needed more space to operate with restrictions indoors. And so finally, all of the businesses which had resisted the opening of this street to pedestrians only and blocking it off from cars were suddenly the strongest supporters of this initiative. And as you can see here, this is from a couple of summers ago. There are no cars on the street. There are people, there are picnic tables, there are bicycles. And again, like many of the things that have happened during the pandemic, we intend to keep it this way. When we made that announcement, there wasn't quite as much support. Some of the businesses on the street feel that they want to get quote unquote back to normal. But as all of us know, there is no going back, particularly with the climate crisis ahead of us. And so if we can go to the next slide. The installation that you saw on the previous slide was just temporary. We basically put up bollards and told people no cars, only people. But we are redesigning the street now, and we'll have places like this. Again, going back to the notion of working with Indigenous people, this is a Lekwungen Plaza at the harbor. So there'll be a gateway feature, places to stop, places to gather. And then if we can go to the next slide. And so too, we do want the space to be green, to be inviting, and there will still be some flexibility. It's a large parade route in the city, so there'll be some flexibility for cars. But what we're doing with this redesign is we're privileging people, like many of you are in your cities. And it's interesting, as we make these changes right now, it's basically a street that was designed for pedestrians, used by cars, and is now being used by people, but it still feels like a car-oriented street. And with some of these changes that we'll be making over the next couple of years, we'll be implementing in a more permanent way a pedestrian and people-based feel. Okay, if we can go to the next slide. Oh, I think we might be missing one or have one out of order. That's okay. Actually, go to the next one. Let's see if I've, and next one. Okay, go back to, we're missing a slide. That's okay, no problem. I can wing it. Okay, so the original slide that should be before this one is a zoomed out version of this area. And what you would see if we had the slide was a giant parking lot on the ocean. And as we can imagine, that's probably the worst possible thing to do with property on the ocean, public space on the ocean. But since 1956, this area known as Clover Point has been a parking lot. And again, if you'd seen the previous slide that I sent, you would have seen a parking lot. We constructed a major infrastructure project, a new sewage treatment plant, and there's a pump station here at Clover Point. And this area was closed to the public for a couple of years. No one could park their cars there anyway, because it was a construction site. And so city staff, when the construction was finished, suggested that we close this entire area to cars and open it up to people. Well, you can imagine the controversy that caused, but we did it nonetheless. And so this slide has some beautiful picnic tables. And then if we can go to the next slide. Oh, forward. One more. There we go. We've also installed some chairs right along the ocean. And again, like Government Street, this is a temporary intervention. We'll do some long-term planning and make this a people place permanently. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, again, I'm missing the slide that was supposed to be there. This is an old seawall. The slide that was sent that's supposed to go before this again shows this in context. And this was built about 7 decades ago. It's right on the ocean. And again, maybe the next slide will be the right one. And this is a piece of infrastructure that needs to be replaced. It is right on a major thoroughfare. And one of the things that our staff are considering is how do we redo this infrastructure? Do we put up another wall to keep the ocean out? Or with the sea level rise that we know is coming, with climate change that we know is coming, do we have a nature-based intervention and replace this wall with a green shores approach? And indeed, that is the plan that we're making right now. Maybe the next slide will be the right one to show you a zoomed out approach. Nope. This is actually my last slide, but there's supposed to be one more before it. Can we go to the next one to see if we've got the right one? Okay, so we're missing a couple of slides. That's what happens when we work virtually. The slide that I would show you before this one is of Beacon Hill Park. It's a beautiful park in the city, 180 acres of parkland in the core of the city. And one of the things that we've really done, even as our city grows and expands, is preserved biodiversity, preserved spaces for people to go and be, but also, as many of you have said, spaces for insects, spaces for animals, and spaces to have carbon sinks and absorption of stormwater. So this actually now is my last slide. And the point that I want to make with it is this is another shot of Beacon Hill Park with the downtown in the background. And even while the city of Victoria has grown very, very much over the last 8 years and has seen an absolute development boom, there's more building here than there has been in decades. And in fact, last year we hit a building permit record of $700 million of investment in the downtown. Even still, and this is a really important point, our urban canopy, the urban forest in that same period has not shrunk. In fact, it's grown by the equivalent of 50 football fields of urban canopy. So that is to say that cities and forests and biodiversity can coexist. So I'll just wrap up by saying that what's required for all of us is that as we look for solutions, we need to be looking forward as cities to the 22nd century rather than back to the 20th century. With that, I'm not able to join you at the reception afterwards, but if anyone would like to follow up or continue the conversation, you can find me by email. And it's wonderful to be there with all of you. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for sharing with us your vision of our region from the other side of the Atlantic, another port city. another place where we are trying to reconnect the city to its port without forgetting about the environment and the rise of sea levels, which should concern all of us and does indeed concern all of us. To conclude this session, our final speaker will take us to the Mediterranean. I would now like to hand the floor over to the mayor of Larnaca, Cyprus, Mr. Andreas Ferras. Thank you. You have the floor.
Esteemed participants, dear colleagues, first allow me to express my gratitude for the opportunity to address this International Forum of Mayors, a prestigious initiative that brings together mayors from all over the world to discuss and exchange views on our common vision and challenges at the local government level. Each local community is without a doubt unique in its own, but at the same time, local governments all over the world can easily identify similar goals, and exchanging know-how and is always useful. Today, at this session is devoted to vibrant public space. I would like to share my experience as the mayor of the historic city of Larnaca in Cyprus. More specifically, I would like to talk about the process of rejuvenating a beautiful but dying neighborhood of our city, following a philosophy that promotes both youth innovation and social inclusion. This is the development of the Salina Park and its surroundings. As you can see in the first photo, the area comprised of beautiful greenery and aristocratic colonial-style buildings that have been unfortunately abandoned for several years. I think many of my colleagues can relate to the feeling of disappointment when you see a beautiful area with great potential completely out of use. We have to add that more time goes by, the more difficult and costly it becomes to restore these buildings and rehabilitate the whole area. But I'm grateful that people with long-term innovating vision step and the hard work began. The transformation of the area began a few years back when in 2018, one of the most beautiful mansions of this area was radically renovated at March 2018, and the youth makerspace came to life and opened its doors, as you can see in the second photo. The municipality has offered a space and the maintaining of it, and the Cyprus Youth Board of Cyprus is responsible for running it. This collaboration takes place in the framework of the National Youth Strategy implementation. The project is funded by the Cyprus Youth Board with support of the European Social Fund. The goal of the Youth Makerspace is to provide a properly equipped venue where young people have the opportunity to try new things, discover new technologies, unlock their imagination, and unleash their creativity in a safe environment where they are free to fail until they succeed. Larnaca Youth Makerspace has three main pillars for its functioning. Equipment. A walk around the rooms of the beautiful neoclassical building of the makerspace allows you to understand all the creativity steps and possibilities offered through the project, from brainstorming to prototyping to actually make it, and each room is equipped with the necessary technology to fulfill its purpose. Second element of the Larnaca Youth Makerspace is education. The main focus is to launch educational programs and projects for participants between the age of 6 and 35 in order to teach them how to use the equipment and all the range of creative possibilities they may have by using it. Some of the events that have been launched are the hackathon, a make-hackathon, and a maker's fair. Other than events, the makerspace also calls for month-long residence of makers and groups of various disciplines in the fields of art, design, multimedia and graphic arts, interactive technologies, engineering and construction, education, entrepreneurship to use its premises. This takes us directly to the third consisting element of the makerspace, that is community. In order to put the other two elements into action, you need to engage the local community. Therefore, the makerspace works and will continue working closely with various actors within the local community, such as the municipality, schools, university, the scouts, entrepreneurs, and obviously the already established makers of the community from all paths of life, constructors, architects, painters, photographers, just to name a few. It goes without saying that where there is youth and innovation, the spring comes. So it's no surprise that after 4 extremely successful years of our youth makerspace, the entire area is blossoming again. The last 2 images of these presentations are renderings of the Salina Municipal Park that is under construction in the same area of the youth makerspace. In fact, as you can see in the third picture, the park will include, among other things, entertainment spaces, healthy development and rejuvenation of the urban environment, improvement of the space by enhancing the already existing greenery and appropriate landscaping, and introduction of contemporary elements that fit in, creation of new jobs both during the construction of the park as well as for its maintenance, improvement of the environmental aspects and attraction of citizens of all age groups, expanded assets and use for people with disabilities, functional quality improvement of the overall space. The regeneration of the space will also be that it will become a green land for the city and a space of entertainment, exercise, rest, and social contact. Our main goal is to elevate the whole city center area to the citizens and visitor needs and expectations, as well as to achieve sustainability regarding the quality of life. Another important aspect of our development vision is social inclusion, a major challenge for many local authorities. Our fourth and final image indicates this vision. Hence, we decide to rejuvenate another mansion of the Salina Park area and turn it to a multi-space of creative engagement of youth and vulnerable groups. This project is carried out by the municipality in collaboration with the Cyprus Addiction Treatment Authority. The aim of this space is the support and empowerment of youth and vulnerable groups, the development of important social skills, teaching the principle of teamwork, understanding, and free expression. We want to maximize everyone's potential so that especially young people can successfully handle the challenges of adult life. Through such target programs, children and youth can appreciate a healthy lifestyle, enhance their skills, develop independence and balanced personalities, and reach their full potential through their individuality. As the mayor of Larnaca, I can assure you that hard work and dedication to our vision finally pay off. We need to believe in the potential of our surroundings. We need to listen to the needs of our local community, and we often need to think outside the box and be creative. The public space can only be truly vibrant because of the energy that people bring to it. It is not enough for a space to be architecturally interesting. It needs to be made useful and inviting to all community members. This is how can we bring life to a park, a neighborhood, a whole city. As the president of the Union of Cyprus Municipalities, I'm proud to let you know that very often our vision and will are bigger than our size. The project that I have presented is just one example of many, of a lot of others in Cyprus. Unfortunately, many of them, although envisioned by local authorities, are never or very slowly implemented because of the system of local authorities that we have in Cyprus. It's my sincere hope that the local government reform in Cyprus will finally enable, empower, and facilitate local authorities in order to have the means and the independence to execute such projects faster and more efficiently for the benefit of all the members of our local communities. Finally, on behalf of all the Cyprus municipalities, I would like to express our solidarity to the Ukrainian people. We Cypriots have bitter experience of war and violent displacement, and we will stand by every individual at these difficult times until international law and order are restored. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Andreas Karistopoli from Larnaca in Cyprus. And I think the emphasis on also using technology and making use of the creativity that comes from young people and from learning at an early age a lot of these skills and how some of these skills can be very useful. I remember there were mayors that were playing SimCity and trying to get young kids that the gamification of learning and using video games could also help the planning, and the hackathons and a lot of the periodic creativity sessions can be of great example for other cities to use, just as our friend from Larnaca was sharing. Now, these 50 minutes are the last barrier between the session and drinks and the reception. So let's make sure they go fast. And in order to do that, I'm looking for the last contributions, maybe 1 minute, if you need or want to say something. I recognize you. I used to be young. I can't read.
Geneva Cities Hub.
Geneva Cities Hub. So yes, the floor is yours. And then please either raise your flag or raise your name or the city name or the country name if you want to make a very brief contribution. So we'll go with the our Geneva friends, the Cities Hub.
Thank you very much, Mr. Co-moderator. And it's very intimidating that we take the floor now that I know that I'm in between you and the drinks. Dear mayors, dear deputy mayors, dear Madam Chair, dear co-moderators, the Geneva Cities Hub is very pleased to take part today in the second Forum of Mayors. Allow me here to congratulate UNEC and its member states, and of course all the mayors for organizing such an interesting meeting, focusing on actors and issues that will increasingly determine the future of our urbanized world. Our President Sami Kanaan already said it in the opening session this morning, but the Geneva Cities Hub is very proud to support the second Forum of Mayors. Geneva is home to an incredible number of state delegations, international organizations, NGOs, academic institutions, and private companies. Together, all these actors talk, argue, and negotiate about key challenges that affect us all. However, this ecosystem would be incomplete if it did not include cities, which are often the most affected by these global challenges, but also where the most innovative solutions are often coming from. And we've heard quite a number of them this morning and this afternoon. Be it climate change, conflicts, inequalities, or mass migration, all relevant stakeholders need to gather around the table to develop common language and shared solutions. The Forum of Mayors contributes to that kind of inclusive multilateralism that UN Secretary General Gutierrez has been referring to. The Forum of Mayors is unique within the UN, and we hope that it is only the beginning of a stronger relationship between the UN and cities and their mayors in favor of a more effective multilateralism. Dear mayors, dear colleagues, we're particularly glad that this second edition enables mayors from the UNSC region to exchange with mayors from other regions, thanks to the support of the 4 other UN regional economic commissions. A public side event organized by the Geneva Cities Hub will actually look into the work of all UN regional economic commissions with mayors right after the forum on the 6th of April. We're very grateful to all of them for having accepted our invitation and look forward to reflecting on how the UNEC Forum of Mayors could inspire other regions to increase engagement with mayors and local and regional governments. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope that the Declaration of Mayors adopted during the first edition of the forum will continue to be implemented and garner wider support. And above all, we hope that the Forum of Mayors will continue to take place in Geneva and offer this vital space for multi-level dialogue between mayors themselves, but also with states and the UN, a space for dialogue that is so dearly needed to address today's numerous and immense challenges. I thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Your co-moderators have one final thing to say. I was very pleased, very honored to be co-moderator here at this session this afternoon, to participate with all of you and address the topic of vibrant and green spaces and cities. We have all noted, I think, the quality of all of this exchange, of the information we have heard today, which is useful for all of us and will assure us that the city of tomorrow will be more green, but also more creative. Because we are not going to stop here. We're going to keep moving. We're going to create greener cities, renew our public spaces, make them even greener. We're going to rethink them, make them more vibrant so that they serve a new urban democracy. All of these greening initiatives that are being adapted to contemporary conditions are creating new spaces for exchange, for communication, for discussion, and will help us build new cities. new urban democracy is going to be green and creative and innovative. And I wouldn't say that they will completely reconfigure cities and their environment, but they will help us have a better conception of these spaces and the connection between nature and cities, and help us build this connection in a better way, whether that's on a large territory or on a small island. I think it's this quality of innovation and creativity that we will only be able to achieve through democracy, through discussion with our populations. I think this is the future of Europe. That's what we're discussing here today. And we'll be moving away from the older Europe, reinventing our history to see something new in the 21st century. I was also very pleased to co-moderate this session together with my partner here, and I'm going to hand the floor over to him for the final words. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Co-Moderator Marie-Pierre. This was a pure joy. And I know in a world where a lot of things don't work, it was great to have a session about stuff that does work. There's a few things that do work, I think, to summarize. One thing that does work is solidarity. Solidarity works. I can't think of any mayor who did not mention Ukraine or the solidarity with Ukraine, with refugees, with mayors who are sometimes being abducted. Some have lost their lives. Some are going through major sacrifice. And solidarity between cities works. And sometimes nations have different ramifications for the way they make their decisions, and states and their diplomatic routes, of course, have implications. But cities are pure, cities are true, cities reflect the passion, desires, and aspirations of their own people. And I think solidarity works. And we've seen how cities have lined up to help and to be of use in this time of crisis. But also one good news is multilateralism works. And when we were having this brainstorming 3 years ago, I think the big dilemma in this holds was that, do we need another mayor's forum? Do we need another mayor's network? Do we need another gathering of mayors? And I think today we have the answer, Paula, and all our friends who committed to planting this concept 3 years ago, because apparently it works. You know, look at the tree challenge. How many mayors actually did report that a challenge that was put up by this forum, our first round, is now modus operandi in many of the cities. So the fact that multilateralism works is great news. And the fact that many of us are doing very similar things, are almost raising each other to how fast we can reach these goals, is fantastic, fantastic news. And I think my last take was that tri-storming works. We spend so much time doing brainstorming, and sometimes we brainstorm ourselves to death. But a lot of the mayors have shown that, look, you try something, it doesn't work, try something else. And in cities, you can afford to do more tri-storming than brainstorming. And the fact that we found out that so much creativity out there from mayors and stakeholders, whether there's young people or the elderly or the businesses or sometimes unusual advocates who don't pay taxes on vote, like school children, turn out to be great revolutionaries for urban design and urban implementation. So to conclude this forum on the session, actually, well, it'll be the end of the forum for me because I have to go home, but the team will be here. So solidarity works, multilateralism works, and tri-storming and creativity do work. So thanks for making this great effort to all of our friends at UNECE. And I look very forward to not only exchanging with a lot of the mayors, but catching up with some of the great ideas that have been going on, especially in a time of crisis, such as COVID for all of us, earthquakes for some, and war for some of our dear friends in Ukraine. And I think if our driving force is to look at crisis not with resignation, but as an opportunity for creativity and opportunities to make our cities better and stronger, I think we have found the niche of this session. So thank you to my co-moderator. We had a wonderful time. And then to Paula, but I would like to give the concluding word to Doris, who was so kind to chair and also bring all of us together in this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I also would like to join to this thanking for the wonderful session that was developed, and especially you two that co-moderated in a very professional and lively way, and also to all mayors that presented today. Now I would again like to inform you about what is happening this evening and tomorrow morning. As I already announced before, at 6 o'clock, there will be a cocktail by the mission of Switzerland to WTO and EFTA taking place in Bar Serpentine, which is here close. And at 7 o'clock, there will be a side event by UN Road Safety Fund, Smart and Safe Mobility, highlights from the Global Road Safety Films Festival taking place in this room. Tomorrow morning, I would like to attract your attention that we start early with two side events. One starts at 8:30. It's organized by the Permanent Mission of Italy and the United States of America in Geneva, the City of Bari and City Diplomacy Lab at Columbia Global Center, taking place at the mezzanine, which is here in the E-building. Those that were in this UEFA side event, they know, but it's easy to reach. And another one which goes in parallel, again at 8:15, it's an urban pandemic preparedness, city contributions to international processes on pandemic prevention, preparedness and response at the Age building in room 207-209. The Edge building is in the building which has you perhaps with some guide you can find. It's not far away from here, from the main entrance. Yeah, from this ground floor. So thank you very much, and see you in a while at the reception for further conversation and networking.